Hello, Spookaroos. Welcome to Spooky As Shit. I am your host, Eric Dwinnells, and I hope that you had a very happy and safe Halloween. Mine was not so eventful because here in Boston we had like almost 5 inches, maybe even more in some areas, of snow. It was ridiculous. I can't tell you how mad I was on Friday when I saw the snow falling and falling and falling, and when I woke up on Halloween morning and it looked like a beautiful Christmas morning. I was very upset about that. I like snow, picturesque snow. I don't like dealing with snow. If I really had my choice, I wouldn't live in an area with snow. But on the other hand, we do get the fall, and I mean the real fall, and that is nice. So you got to take the good with the bad, I guess. But it's not so good when the winter invades the fall. Then the math doesn't work out right. So what am I living here for? Pain in the ass part of the country. I'm sorry, gang. I'm in a little bit of a salty mood because, of course, I couldn't spend Halloween in Salem, which I was really excited to do. It was the first time I was going to be there on actual Halloween day since I started working in Salem as the one and only Witchfinder General, because Halloween just hadn't fallen on a weekend. And this was going to be a major weekend, full moon, times change and everything, fall back and all that. And it was going to be a big party, and we didn't get to do it, obviously. And bummed about that, bummed about the snow, and really super bummed that I just found out my rent is going up. Don't you love those little notices they slip under the door? My landlord, I have to say, I've been here a long time, and he's been pretty good. And I don't really get crazy notices, but this one was real crazy. It's going up a lot. I honestly think he's just trying to drive us out of the building so he can sell it. So now's a good time to remind you about the GoFundMe for the Witchfinder. I've been making YouTube videos, which I hope you will check out. I'm going to tell you about one in particular in a minute. But the idea behind the YouTube videos for the Halloween season, holiday season, I was going to say, which it is, the Halloween season, is that I'd be putting out these, edutainment videos about the Salem witch trials, and hopefully people would watch the videos and be like, oh, this guy's doing some good work here, and they would donate to my GoFundMe. That hasn't fully worked out as greatly as I had hoped. But there's still time. I guess there will be time because I'm not closing it. I'm not closing the GoFundMe anytime soon. So you can go to GoFundMe.com/Witchfinder20 if you are so inclined to donate. And whether you're doing it in support of the Witchfinder and the YouTube videos, or if you're doing it in support of me and this show here, Spooky Ass Shit, guess what? They are both the same person, so they go to the same guy. So if you're looking for a way to support the show, that would be a wonderful way that you could show your support. And I thank everyone who has donated already. Now, I told you I want to tell you about one of the Witchfinder videos in particular because this was a big deal to me. I mentioned it on Instagram and on Facebook, and I was afraid to announce it because, sometimes you get nervous when you have good things that are going to happen, right? So, because in my experience anyway, a lot of times they don't work out. So I try not to get too excited when I find out something good might happen because I'm always afraid it's not going to happen. Call me a pessimist, I guess. But this really did happen. First of all, I went to the 1692 Salem Witchcraft Trials exhibit at the Peabody Essex Museum, which we refer to as PEM around here. And this was a big deal because they have the world's largest collection of items directly related to the witchcraft trials, the trial testimony, items that belonged to the judges and to the accusers and to the accused. And it's kind of spread all over, but they have the largest collection of that kind of stuff, and they never put it on display. And I said, but you people must be allergic to money because you should at the very least, make this a seasonal thing and really make it kind of a permanent exhibit. I did not talk to the director. They have a new director. And I didn't talk to the new one or the old one. But I guess it was under this new director that they've decided to reconnect with Salem history a little bit and the city of Salem a little bit, and to finally put these items on display. It's the first time in 30 years that they've displayed these things. So I was very excited about it. And I was there opening day. and went through the exhibit, loved it, posted about it on social media, got some feedback from Pem, some kind feedback, nice feedback. So I reached out to them and said, hey, I'm starting this YouTube channel for my Witchfinder character, which I perform right in front of Pem every Halloween season, except for this year, of course. And I said, would you allow me to come out of costume, just as myself, not as the Witchfinder, but would you allow me to come in and do a video about the exhibit with, maybe someone who works at the museum? And when I said that, I thought maybe they'd get some punk kid from Salem State that would kind of show me around and be like, oh yeah, this year's this belonged to John Proctor, something like that. But they agreed to it, and they said, yeah, no problem. We're going to set you up with a guy named Tad Baker. And it turns out Tad Baker is literally an expert on New England witchcraft. He's written 2 books, at least, about witchcraft, specifically about the Salem witchcraft. He's got a book called A Storm of Witchcraft, The Salem Witch Trials and the American Experience. And I highly recommend that book, even if you've read books about the Salem Witch Trials, because he does kind of a different take than you might normally get. And very interesting. And I went in last Wednesday on October 28th, and we went through the exhibit. I picked out a few items to look at. He picked out a few. We talked about them, discussed them, filmed it, and it's up now on YouTube. I don't have enough subscribers to have a custom URL, pain in the ass, so you just got to look either for Witchfinder of Salem, and then you should find my page somewhere, or you can look for this video specifically, look for PEM 1692 Witch Trials exhibit, and that should take you to the video. And I really do hope that you guys will check it out. It's about a half hour long to go through all the different items, but if you're a person who's a history buff and who's really interested in the history of the witchcraft trials and witchcraft in New England, then I think you're really going to like this video. It was an honor for me to film, and I thank Pam, and I thank Professor Baker, and I thank Brian Toney, who was there as the cameraman. So if you do watch the video, your friend and mine, Brian Toney, is the one running the camera. Okay, so this episode is one of those free-form episodes. This is our yearly tradition of kind of rounding up our Halloween season. Now, for me, Halloween season really starts in earnest probably in July. That's when I really start working on things for my Halloween season, whether it be stuff for the Witchfinder or stuff for the show, or just stuff that plans that I'm making to carry out during the Halloween season. And I know a lot of Halloween nuts are like me. It's not just 1 month long. It's longer than that. And I think about it even longer, but I don't really put it into action until July or so. And because of that, it became sort of a tradition with me and one of my nieces for her birthday. I don't always like to give presents. I like to give experiences, that they're going to remember, and remember that they did this with Uncle Eric. And so we've started several years back doing spooky field trips. And we've gone to a couple different places. We've gone to Salem, of course. I think that might have been maybe the first or second one. We went to Lizzie Borden's Bed and Breakfast. And but that became a bit of a tradition, kind of by accident, that it was going to be specifically a spooky thing. Her birthday is in September, but to me, that's the middle of my getting ready for Halloween season, so that's the perfect time to start doing your spooky field trips. But then my other nieces and nephews wanted to join in as well. So since last year, they've started to join in too. So it's become more of a whole family affair. The ones that are interested in spooky stuff anyway. So this year in September, we went up to Maine to the International Cryptozoology Museum. Longtime listeners will know that I have been there before. They were just building a new area when I went last time, and it wasn't 100% complete. It was still under construction, so I was very interested to go back and see what it was like, even though I do remember saying on the last time I talked about it that although I enjoyed it, I didn't really feel like it was worth the trip all the way up to Portland, Maine to visit it from Boston, because it's kind of a hike. But I have to say, going back now, maybe it's just because I've been on more road trips, longer road trips since then, but going back now, the trip really didn't seem all that long. But as for the museum itself, it's funny because we got there and there was a very enthusiastic gentleman at the door, and he asked, if any of us had been there before, and I raised my hand and said, yeah, I came here like when you guys first moved into this building. It wasn't quite finished yet. And he's like, oh, it's changed a whole lot. Everything's different. And he's talking to another guy behind the counter. He's like, oh yeah, everything's like totally different now. Well, I wouldn't have cared if it was the same. I just want to show the kids it's a fun place to visit, even if it's not the most, like, you can't go there thinking you're going to get scientific evidence and like a whole bunch of new knowledge about cryptids and that kind of thing, right? As much as Lauren Coleman might like you to believe that, we can it's debatable, I believe. And I'm not really throwing shade at him. I'm just stating it like I see it. Basically, does he really believe this stuff, or is he just like full of shit and wants to make a buck, is what I'm trying to say. And that is something that I think is debatable. But I don't mind a little bit of what P.T. Barnum might call humbug. In fact, I kind of like it. So just the fact that it's a cryptozoology museum, that will get me alone anyway. I'm not necessarily there for the science. I'd like a little bit, especially if that's the way you're going to present it. If you're going to present it as like, you're going to come here, we're going to convince you or try to convince you that these things are real. This place doesn't do that. Not at all. So there's that for what it's worth. But if you want a really, really strange experience, then the Cryptozoology Museum is a great place to visit. Despite what they told me at the front door, it really hasn't changed. I mean, it looks different. Things have changed a little bit, but it still basically looks like an upstairs and downstairs hallway that you walk through with a bunch of stuff all over the place. And it's still a lot of action figures. I know that's a review that they get a lot. Like, why did I pay money to come and look at some action figures? Which sounds weird, right? But they have a bunch of toys on display of like Bigfoot or like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And they have reasons why, but their reasons are really weak. Or they'll have like a little toy shark, like a little toy shark that you'd get at any toy store, like just a little rubber shark, and it's labeled Megalodon, and you're like, oh, okay. So that's an example of like what you're dealing with here. Now, that said, they do have some cooler items on display. You can go back and listen to my whole episode about the International Cryptozoology Museum to hear all about it. But I don't want to make it sound like it's only that kind of like junky stuff. There is that, but there's also more to it too. And I do think it's a good time. And like I said, it seemed like a much shorter trip this time. I think it only took maybe 2 hours, maybe slightly more than that. But for some reason, I thought it was more like 4 the first time we went. So I don't know. I don't know what happened. Maybe we slipped into a parallel dimension or something, but we got there pretty quick this time. Maybe my sister's just a really fast driver. I don't know. But so that was that, and it was fun to be there with the kids. And of course, if you saw on Instagram, I bought a casting of an authentic Bigfoot print. In fact, not just an authentic one, but the one from Bluff Creek, which is the famous Patterson-Gimlin footage. That's where that was shot. So this could be the footprint of the very same Sasquatch that was filmed in that video. They think it's a female. The foot really isn't that big. If you saw on Instagram, compared to my foot, I mean, it's bigger than my foot, but not like that much bigger. Also got some feedback about my toenails on that video. I do have to keep my big toenail longer than the others, and there's a reason for that. But a guy's got to have his secrets. All right, moving on, let's talk about the big news of the season, which, of course, is COVID and its effect on Salem, Massachusetts. Now, normally, I would be out busking on the streets of Salem as the Witchfinder General, putting tourists on trial, taking pictures with them, and hopefully getting $1 or $2 from them as I do it. But this year, because of COVID, we could not be on Essex Street, which is the main drag, like the main area in Salem. And we couldn't gather crowds, and we couldn't do performances. There was a whole bunch of like city guidelines about what you could and couldn't do. However, very, very kindly, an organization known as the Haunted Happenings Marketplace, which is they're the people that kind of sponsor the street festivals that take place in Salem in October, and they they don't hire the street performers or anything. We're all independent, but they do support the street performers, and they proved it this year because they went out of their way to try to find a space for us to be in, to perform in, and that kind of thing. And they found it on Salem Common, exactly where we filmed the scene that I am in Hubie Halloween, which we'll also talk a tiny little bit about. But they made these booths that we could stand in. We could like schedule times to be in. And if you're the kind of character that stands and takes pictures with people because you dress up like Freddy or Michael Myers or Jason or Pennywise or something like that, that's great. You can stand there, people come and take their pictures. It still won't be as many as you might see on Essex Street, but at least you had somewhere to be, and it's still kind of a popular area. It's right across from the Witch Museum, so people can see you, and if they're interested, they can come over and take a picture with you. Well, it doesn't work as well for my character because I'm not just a person who stands there to take pictures. I do a performance, and without my performance, and without the sign that I have to put around people's wrists and everything, and like the props that I use in my performance that people can't touch this year because of COVID, I'm just a guy in a pilgrim outfit. And I don't think there's a huge demand for that for pictures. In fact, I know there isn't because I did go out there a few times. And the first time I went out there, I didn't even get in the booth because I was like, I'm just going to be here. I'll take a few pictures. I'll take a couple videos for the YouTube channel. But I wasn't ready to perform or anything because I thought we weren't allowed to. But they basically said, like, no, if you bring your microphone and stuff, you can do your thing. You just can't gather like a big crowd or anything. So I couldn't quite do my thing, but I could kind of do my thing. So I did that the next time. But then with the mayor going on the news and telling people not to come and the cases number rising high in Massachusetts again, I said, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to focus on making these YouTube videos like I talked about earlier. And that'll be that. And that'll be my year this year. And that is what happened. Although the booths did remain open and some street performers did still go out, even on Halloween day with snow on the ground. Personally, I disagree with their decision. I don't judge people. I'm not saying that they're bad people for doing it or whatever, but I think people need to be smart and say it's time to stay home. And I think as street performers with a following, on Instagram, however humble they may be, we all do have followings, and I think it sends the wrong message to be out there. It sends the message of like, oh, we don't care about Corona, and they take pride in it. You can see some of them, they're like, oh, we don't care about Corona, we're going to be out here, it's Halloween, you can't stop Halloween, and they consider it as like showing like, hey, we're stronger than Corona. But to me, there's a time and a place for that kind of thing, and when safety's on the line, I don't think it's the best idea. So that's why I chose not to be out there, and hopefully to be a role model as someone who, as much as I love Halloween, and I do, and as much as I love Salem, and I do, and as much as I love the visitors we get in Salem, and I totally do, safety first for everybody, not just myself, but for everybody. I could be carrying it and not know it. I could spread it and not know it. Even if people are wearing the masks, which they were for the most part, it's still, I was uncomfortable with it, and so that's why I made the decision to be someone who says, hey, you know what? We're going to show, there are limits. I'm not willing to put your life in danger to, say that I was in Salem, even on 2020, Halloween 2020. So that was my choice. Now, the other thing was Hubie Halloween, of course, premiered this October. I already did a whole episode about that, so I won't waste your time with it. Again, I'll just say I'm not necessarily a huge fan of that kind of humor. The movie itself didn't particularly appeal to me, but it was fun to see myself, even if it was only about 5 seconds in the movie, right around the 53-minute mark if you're interested. When they're in the park bobbing for apples, I'm right behind the mayor, dressed in a big shiny cape as Macho Man Randy Savage. Sorry, I should say Randy Man Macho Savage. That's who I was playing, right next to the mime. And if you go back and listen to the last new episode I did, you can hear all about that. The other thing I did, the other little road trip I went on, was down to Sleepy Hollow. Now, I've been to Sleepy Hollow many times, but I was fortunate this time, again, thanks to Instagram. Someone who lives in Sleepy Hollow, and this is a woman who goes by the name Danny October. I think it's Danny _October on Instagram. She is kind of like the Sleepy Hollow, Tarrytown version of me in regards to Salem, like always posting stuff about Sleepy Hollow, and it's her town, and lots of good information there. And I mentioned that I was going there. I posted a picture of myself there in a previous year and said, "Hey, I'll be there." And I was specifically looking for the grave of the Sleepy Hollow Witch, and she is a legend. I think I've even talked about it. I believe we did talk about it on the episode that Jenny Blades and I did about the Headless Horseman and Sleepy Hollow. But when I first started going to Sleepy Hollow, it was known that this real-life legendary witch was buried in the cemetery. She was given a Christian burial because even though the village kind of shunned her back in the 18th century, she served in the Revolutionary War. She took part in a skirmish that happened there, and she was something of a war hero. So in the end, even though they had kind of shunned her in life, after she died, they said, you know what? Maybe she wasn't so bad after all, and she was basically a hero in this skirmish. So let's grant her a Christian burial in the old Dutch churchyard. So that's where she's buried, but they didn't give her a marked grave. And so when I first started visiting, there was nothing to see. You just knew that like somewhere in the cemetery allegedly is this witch. But now I got a hot tip a couple years back. They did, I believe it was in 2017, maybe? I could have the year wrong. They finally gave her a headstone. Now, it's not necessarily where her body is. They don't know where she was buried, but it is easy to find. It's like right to the left back side of the church, and you can see it there. But I was able to find it because of Danny October. So thank you very much to her. She also sent me a link, several links actually, about like things to do in Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow. And she also sent me the list of like places to visit that are mentioned in the actual story by Washington Irving, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And, you can basically trace the route that Ichabod Crane was said to have taken from the Halloween party at the Van Tassel farm down to the old Dutch church, although he doesn't quite make it to the church. But still, it was really cool. I've done that trip before, but it was nice to have an easy reference guide right there. Actually, the very first time I went to Sleepy Hollow, I came very prepared with my brother, and we went through and did that same kind of tour. Except, of course, we didn't get to see the witch's grave. And we didn't really spend too much time in Tarrytown. I've never spent too much time there, except, of course, to go to Lyndhurst, which is a separate thing. We didn't do that this year, but that's another place we like to visit, and I've been there at least 3, maybe 4 times. So it was nice to visit Tarrytown and go, up and down Main Street in Tarrytown, which we did. We got some pumpkins. We carved actual Sleepy Hollow pumpkins. I think that's pretty cool. And I had a good time. I still say that Salem is 100% the Halloween capital of the world and not Sleepy Hollow, but Sleepy Hollow is still a very nice place to visit, and I recommend it if you're able to take a trip out there. I passed by it many, many times on my way to New York or to, somewhere in New Jersey. I'd see the signs for Tarrytown, Sleepy Hollow, crossing over the bridge and everything, and I'd always say, oh, we should stop there sometime. And finally, many years ago, my brother and I did, and so I've gone several times since then, and it's always a good trip. Like I said, I think the thing about Sleepy Hollow is it's very kind of quaint, as opposed to Salem, which is quaint for a city, but it's still a city. So if you want like a real like fallish, lots of trees and leaves on the ground, and you imagine it's still kind of looks a little bit like it did back in the day. You get that kind of old school, like, colonial sense, rustic a little bit rustic, in a good way. That's how I would describe Sleepy Hollow. And of course, it doesn't quite have the same crass commercialism as Salem does, because that's, there are good things about Salem and bad things about Salem. And there's a lot of tourist traps, and, I love it all, basically, because, like I said, I don't mind a little bit of humbug. Kind of enjoy it, in fact. But there is a sincerity in Sleepy Hollow that can sometimes be lacking from certain elements in Salem. So I'd recommend you check out both. Why not? They're not that far away from each other. So you could make a long weekend of visiting Salem and Sleepy Hollow. Be a busy weekend, but you could do it and you'd have a good time. I hosted a Halloween party over Zoom. That was crazy. This was for work. It wasn't for my personal life, but still just hosting a party over Zoom. It was the first time I'd done that. I played some Halloween-themed music videos. We played Thriller, of course. We played Jump the Line from the Beetlejuice soundtrack with video from Beetlejuice. Someone had posted that on YouTube. That was fun. I Put a Spell on You from Hocus Pocus and a couple other things. I don't remember exactly what. But we did that, and we played some horror movie trivia clips and, that kind of thing. So it was nice. And we were all in costume, of course. For that, I was dressed as Jason, which is an old costume that I had that I dug out real quick because I don't like to, give away my costume for the actual Halloween party, which was the next day at work. So I'm fortunate enough to have a job where people do dress up for Halloween, and the staff and the individuals that we serve all dress up. So I was dressed in a tribute to the Ben Cooper costumes of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, maybe even into the 90s. I was dressed as the devil with some artwork that I painted myself, but it was based on the artwork of Frank Romano, who you might have seen on my Instagram. I think I've talked about him before. He's the guy that did all the artwork on the Ben Cooper smocks. Those smocks that came with your costume and had that great artwork on them, those plastic things that you would wear. So I painted mine on a t-shirt, and I got a lot of compliments on it. I got a lot of people asking where I bought it. And I say, hey, I didn't buy it. I hand painted it. And they're like, oh, you should sell them. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd get sued if I did, but thank you. I appreciate the compliment. So that was my costume. I was an old school trick-or-treat devil with my pitchfork and my red sweatpants and my red t-shirt painted to look like a Ben Cooper costume, and my vintage style mask, which is the same mask, the same vintage style devil mask that you could get at Spirit this year, but I actually got mine at Savers last year. It was so weird because they didn't have the other vintage monster mask like they did at Spirit this year, but I didn't have to buy the devil mask this year because I already had it. It's the exact same one. I looked it up online to make sure. Exact same one. So that was a happy little coincidence. As for Halloween itself, like I said, nothing too much exciting. Usually I go to my sister's and we take the kids trick-or-treating, but first of all, her kids are getting older now, and they have other things that they like to do, be with their friends and party and that kind of thing. But this year, of course, trick-or-treating didn't really exist, although some people did it. Some people were leaving like bowls of candy outside and saying like take one and that kind of thing, and it's kind of nice to see that. But like I said, I kind of just wish everyone would just stay home. And that's what my family did. They stayed home. I did go to my sister's house, and the kids had a little socially distanced party in the backyard wearing their masks. I thought my sister was crazy because I was like, did it not snow where you live? Because she lives about an hour away from me. And she's like, no, there's like maybe an inch or two on the ground, but we're gonna put the fire pit on, and so I don't know. I thought she was crazy. I sat inside and had some snacks in there with my older nephew and my brother-in-law. So we were safe inside. And yeah, nothing too exciting. We just hung out, chatted, called it a day. And then when I got home, I posted my interview at PEM with Professor Baker. And so I watched the premiere of that on YouTube, and that was fun. And like I said, I hope you guys will check that one out because it means a lot to me. That was a very special interview, and it made me feel very happy to have conducted it. And that was my Halloween season. I think that's it. So I'd love to hear about what you guys were up to. So drop me a line. You can go to the website spookyassshit.com or spookyas.com. They both take you to the same place. You can find the email there. It's spookyasshit@gmail.com. But you can also hit me up on Instagram at spookyasshit. And you can also look for us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas. And while you're there, you can join our secret closed group, the Spookaroos. That's there so that you can talk about spooky stuff without the weight of public judgment. I got to get back to using Facebook more often. I'm one of those people that's kind of gravitated more towards Instagram lately. But don't think I forgot you, Facebook. I see you guys out there, and I read everything that you write. So thank you for that. Thank you for the support. Thank you for being spookaroos. All right, so I know this maybe wasn't the most exciting episode, but this is our yearly tradition of running down what we did for Halloween so that we can remember as the years go by. I hope that you are taking time to stop and reflect and think about what you did. I hope that even though with Corona, you were able to make it a memorable Halloween. I think I did. I did some fun stuff there. Maybe not the Halloween day itself being so excellent, but the rest of it was good. Liked going to the Cryptozoology Museum, liked going to Salem, liked Sleepy Hollow. All that stuff's good. So fun is where you find it. So you got to make your own fun sometimes, especially in these times. It's a very trying and difficult time for a lot of people, myself included, but we just got to keep on trucking, man. As time goes by, I eventually hope to start doing some YouTube videos for this show as well. I don't want to switch over to doing YouTube full time, but because I had to make a lot of videos for remote programming for my day job, I kind of remembered like, oh yeah, I used to be pretty good at editing video and stuff like that. I mean, not great, not professional level or anything, but pretty good, for an amateur who doesn't usually do that kind of thing. So it kind of sparked an interest in that again for me. So right now I'm focusing on the Witchfinder and that kind of stuff, but eventually I would like to do some videos for this too. So let me know if there's things that you guys want to see videos about. It's not going to be like topics like they are covered here on this show. I'm not going to sit and talk at length about certain topics, but maybe I could show off some things and talk about pop culture, spooky stuff or something. I don't know exactly, but if you've got anything that you'd like to see from me, drop me a line and let me know. And I think that's really all I have to say. So I thank you for joining me and hearing about my Halloween season. Again, don't forget to get in contact with me somehow and let me know about your Halloween season, or come at me with recommendations for next year. I know one thing I would like to do, not necessarily next year, because I think I'm going to be broke as a joke by then, but I would love to go down to Universal Studios and go to Halloween Horror Nights. I've never been, and it just seems like a thing to do, and I would really like to try that. I'd also like to go to Transylvania sometime and tour Dracula's castle, even though I've heard almost nothing but mixed to bad reviews of the trip itself. Still, it seems like something I would like to do. So that's another thing you can do. Let me know your spooky aspirations, spooky trip aspirations. All right, folks. Until next time, don't be afraid.